Hello, and welcome to the first season of DigiFox Studios' new original podcast series, The Blood-Drawn Chronicles. Brought to you in part by Cool Comics and Games, Lee County's largest comics and gaming store, and the generous contributions of audiences like you. Thank you. The Blood-Drawn Chronicles Season 1, The Manuscripts of a Vampire, stars Nelson Ventura as Myrick, son of Meyer, Alyssa Kalugden as Karina Gallo, Paul Roberts as Lord Dragon, and Sterling Torville as Lord Tyrus Godfrey. To view the full cast, crew credits, and more, please visit www.digifoxstudios.com/tbdc. On behalf of everyone here at DigiFox Studios, we want to thank you for listening, and now our story begins. If you're reading this, I bestow a word of caution to those faint of heart. This book contains a record of events that occurred and acts which I've committed during my time in the world of man. I am Myrick, son of Meyer, and these are the manuscripts of a Vampire. May 23rd, 1690. I have taken to the skies for days now since my encounter with Tyrus Godfrey. My wings have begun to grow tiresome. Though usually for short distances I need not extend them, I find when I'm in need of traveling great stretches, I tend to fly until my wings beckon me to be retracted back inside my body. To take my mind off of the discomfort I'm beginning to endure, I point my mind towards the events that led to this moment. After I left Castle Godfrey, I found myself tasked with one last objective before departing the town of Novi. Paris, France, was to be my next destination. Having a location for which to venture is but the first part. I now found myself in need of a heading. Much to my fortune, I had just the man to point me in the right direction. Edmond D'Artes is French, and therefore had what I required. I decided to wait until nightfall before reuniting myself with Edmond. Like a dark mist, I swept through Novi until I found myself in his cell in the prison keep. He was fast asleep. My first instinct, of course, was to waken him, but I quickly decided to refrain from such action, finding him reposed quite peacefully in his bed as he slept. Poor Edmund had suffered enough, and I found myself unable to withdraw him from what little peace his dreams had granted him. I was left with no choice but to use an alternative method. Much like the vampire, who gazes into the minds of his victims through their blood, so too can a vampire trespass into such private territories. Though unlike the vampire, who is granted this gift from blood, the vampire only requires the victim to be unconscious. With Edmund already in such a state, I needed only to place either one of my hands on his forehead to establish a link between us. I only had the opportunity of doing this to a human one other time. This man's name was Roderick Tetherpot, and he knew where I could find the vampire of Castle Godfrey. However, fear held his tongue, and I found myself with no other option. Strangely enough, I came to learn from that experience how fragile the human mind truly is. If I pried too far into Edmund's psyche, he would forever become a mindless sack of meat. Luckily, when I entered his thoughts, France was the first thing on his mind. At that point, finding his memories of coming to Bosnia was rather simple. After obtaining the knowledge I required, I left his cell just as easily as I had entered it. As I continued to reminisce, the all-too-familiar odor of burning wood now catches my attention. I look to my left to find dark clouds of smoke in the distance. At first glance, I decided to ignore it. However, as I begin to turn my head, a spark of blue light is caught in my peripheral vision. With my curiosity now taking the better of me, I draw myself closer to the smoke clouds. I must admit, I was not prepared for what I witnessed next. The blue light that caught my eye in the distance was blue fire. Fire is fire, and only of one color, or so I thought. One of the few things I find this world shares with mine is fire. It is the same in this world as it is in mine. Yet here my eyes encounter for the first time something of this world I find divine. The blue flames have captivated me so much, I had not given thought to their purpose at first look. An entire town engulfed within its flames. Retracting my wings, I descend down. I have always found the mystical element of fire to be quite fascinating. As a child, I would often find comfort around the light of a fire. Many times I would try to hold a flame in my hand only to witness it dissipate in my grasp. As I grew older, my admiration for this element grew to lesser extents, but this, like a proper sunset, I find enchanting. One weakness to the Valpyr is fire. It does not burn our flesh, but rather its fumes severely dull our sense of smell. This blue fire's fumes ascend to the heavens, taking with them my sense of smell entirely. I continue to roam through this burning town, armed with only my remaining senses. Sight, which at the moment is overtaken by this blue spectacle. Touch, which is presently of no use to me. Hearing, to which now I begin to wonder, why have I not heard a single heartbeat in this town? As I continue to walk through this burning town, I notice a structure which appeared to be the only domicile untouched by the fire. The large wooden cross posted high above its rooftop clearly marked this place for what it was, a church. Curiosity led me inside. In my experience, I found humans all too often immerse themselves in gospel myth. As for myself, I find the story of a man who came to die on a cross in order to save the lives of his kind to be a noble, yet pointless sentiment. I suppose, though, if I were human, the notion of everlasting life would be a promise too prodigious to make sense of the logical. To a Valpyr, life is... What's this? It appears I'm not alone.
Die!
She charges at me furiously. I look her up and down momentarily. She appears remarkably young. She wore all black, from her boots to her pants and corset. Oddly enough, I found her attire from her chest up to appear outer-worldly. She wore a black long-sleeved shirt that only covered her shoulders and neck, leaving her chest and her upper back exposed. The tips of her gloves were cut off to the second knuckle, exposing her fingers. Her outfit was adorned completely with blades on the sides of her pants and corset. The only thing not black on this girl was her hair, which was light brown in color. I found her efforts in attacking me to be rather admiring. This human girl had no idea the kind of apex predator she challenges. Her speed and agility are quite remarkable. Granted, with all resolve put into every attack, she's still unable to land a hit. And I now grow tired of this game we play. Enough!
Finish it!
As you wish.
What are you doing?
Ending it.
If you won't finish me, then I will. I'd rather slit my own throat and die here than be handed over to your master.
You mistake me for someone else. I am Myrick, son of Maya of House M, and I have no master.
You lie, but I don't. I'll do it, I swear.
Something's wrong. I am unable to hear her heartbeats. She stands in front of me, yet I hear nothing. Thanks to the effects of the blue flame, I smell nothing. For once I find myself having to guess my opponent's intentions. The look in her eyes tell me she's not bluffing. Or is she? In my experience in this world, I have come to find humans do not always do as they claim. Presuming that she might not be bluffing, I take the knife from her hand. Her attire and skills in combat begin to make sense to me. The woman in front of me is a vampire hunter, and where there's a vampire hunter, there's ultimately a vampire. How fortunate for me that I come across this opportunity to find another vampire in such a short stretch of time. Perhaps my journey for answers may end here.
What are your intentions with me?
Answers.
What?
I want to know about the person you presumed was my master.
What makes you think I'll tell you anything, stranger? I don't even know what you are.
What makes you say that?
Your speed? The way you move? No human can move as fast as you do. I've only ever seen vampires move that quick.
Your assumptions lead you falsely. I am no vampire.
I can clearly see that. You don't have fangs, pale skin, or yellow eyes. Not to mention we're inside a church. If you were a vampire, your body would have burnt to ashes by now. But then your speed beckons the question, what are you?
Very well, miss. We'll do things another way. For the sake of proper introductions, I shall allow you to ask me any 3 questions about me that you wish. I shall answer truthfully, after which I will ask that you answer all of mine.
And what if I choose not to answer?
Do not force me to answer that. You might not find the response to be to your liking, and you shall have only 2 questions left.
Who are you?
I've already answered that. Question 2.
Fair enough. What are you doing here?
The blue fire brought me. Question 3.
That's it?
Yes. Now it's my turn.
That was a rhetorical question.
I answered your questions truthfully. How you choose to phrase them is not my concern. Now, for my first question, who is the person you thought I served?
You'll just have to kill me, because I'm not telling you anything.
Do not test me.
I still have one more question.
Very well. Ask your final question.
What are you?
I can tell you that I'm not of this world. Now, I believe it's my turn. Who's the person you assume is my master?
I can say he's a not-so-typical person.
What is his name?
I can tell you that he's got quite a peculiar name. What's wrong? I thought the point of your game was to answer questions as vaguely as possible. Have you any more questions? Well then, it appears we've reached a bit of a stalemate, haven't we?
At that moment, I knew I could attempt to hurt her, scare her, or even threaten her, It would not matter. She will not submit, and strangely enough, I admired her for it. Though I have yet to know her name, the woman has already begun to earn my respect. I draw closer to her. She tries stepping back with no success, as her body is now tightly pinned against the wall. Our faces, now so close together, the tips of our noses almost touch. My eyes concentrate as they gaze deeply into hers. They say the eyes are the windows into the soul. With our eyes now locked, I search inside for my answer. There it is. Slowly now I withdraw myself, giving her some room to reassemble her composure. She looks at me as if I had just stole something from her. I take a breath, only to assert myself once more. I am Myrick, son of Myr of House M. I am a presence of which you could not possibly fathom. Believe me if you wish to, or not. What I am, Karina Gallo, is the last thing you want standing against you. With that in mind, I beseech that you now choose. Shall you acquaint me as a friend, or as an enemy? Either way, you have my word. No harm shall come to you.
How did you know my name?
All in good time, Miss Gallo. Right now, you have a rather important decision to make.
He's a vampire. They call him the Plague Bringer. His real name is Dragon. His personality and demeanor cross the borders of pure insanity. Unlike other vampires who finish their victims, Dragon delights in keeping his victims alive. As a result, his victims turned into shobi, mindless vampires, which he is seen usually traveling with as pets. This repeated habit earned him the nickname, the Horde King. He's been known to commit such acts as feeding on parents while children watch, to which later he unleashes the shobi parent on their child. He relishes making humans do obscene acts with the false promise of mercy.
The creature is a monster.
You have no idea.
Such a demon deserves to return to the depths of oblivion from which it came.
I agree. However, despite his demonic nature, the bastard is quite cunning. He has managed to stay ahead of those who have taken it upon themselves to hunt him, myself included.
What happened here?
I failed to fully assess my enemy. Aside from his infamous reputation, I've never encountered a vampire of his liking before. When I faced him in head-to-head combat, he was nothing less than a master swordsman, wielding two of the most unusual swords I'd ever seen, Reaper and Death Dealer. He proved to be more than an adequate match for me. I was forced to retreat, during which time the monster has turned nearly every soul in this town into a shobi. I was forced to use Sunfire in order to buy time and formulate a proper course of action.
She walked past me, heading to the window behind where I stood. Slowly, she places her hand on the glass as she gazes out, her eyes now locked on the wild fire which burnt outside.
The Sunfire is close to burning out. They will soon come for me in great numbers. If you have any sense of logic, you'll leave this town.
And what about you?
I have a duty which I'm bound to carry out. You, on the other hand, have no part in this. Or so you have me believing. If this is true, leave now, while you still have the chance.
When the flames extinguish, how many would you say we would face?
You're staying?
I am all too familiar with the duties one is bound to uphold. In my own experience, I've found the most difficult thing to do is upholding one's duty alone. And so today, Miss Gallo, I will not have you endure that difficulty.
You're a strange one. full of mystery. I'll admit your speed might come in handy, but tell me, have you ever slain a vampire before, Mr. Myerson?
Myerson?
I thought I heard you address yourself as Myrick, son of Meyer, which, in translation, would mean Myerson. Unless, of course, you do not prefer it.
You have earned my respect, Miss Gallo, and with it, the right to call me Myrick Myerson, if you'd so wish. To answer your question, I've slain one. Tyrus Godfrey, Lord of Castle Godfrey. I snapped his neck with my bare hands.
Did you sever his head after?
What?
Did you sever his head after you killed this vampire?
No. No, I did not.
Then you've done nothing.
Impossible. I felt his life leave his body. Tyrus Godfrey died by my hand.
The Gallo family has been slaying vampires for over 300 years. Trust me when I say, if you did not sever his head after you thought he was dead, then your vampire's still very much alive.
This news struck me hard. Tyrus Godfrey lives. It would seem I neglected the healing factor of the vampire. From my notes, and from what humans have spoken, I've come to learn most of their abilities, many of which resemble the Valpyr, only to a lesser extent. If Tyrus Godfrey were a Valpyr, his neck would have healed moments after I afflicted the injury. However, it would seem a vampire requires longer to heal than I. This is a matter I mistook as lacking the ability to heal altogether, a mistake I shall not make twice. I can begin to hear them drawing closer, a multitude of hundreds. Tonight, this horde faces against the might of a Valpyr.